It is always something of a mystery, trying to discover the various sources of the world's great rivers. And so it is with the Rhine, which runs through 5 different countries on its journey to the North Sea, more than 800 miles away. Most of the river's sources are in the high Alps, many of them in Switzerland, where in the spring melting snow and ice rush down the mountainside and fill the upper Rhine tributaries to overflowing. But by summer, the river usually becomes one of the most placid and navigable waterways in the world. On this particularly rural section of the Upper Rhine, there is not usually a great deal of commercial activity. Here, in the region of Baden-Württemberg, where the Rhine makes its sweeping turn northward through one of the most beautiful and beguiling parts of Germany, it might be interesting to leave the river briefly and visit the Schwarzwald, or Black Forest. The vast and densely wooded forest covers most of the region, and if the name conjures up images of Hansel and Gretel and a frightful witch, it should. The brothers Grimm had it in mind when they composed their fairy tales. Passage through the mountainous forest is certainly neither fast nor easy. It isn't supposed to be. This is a place for tourists and vacationers, a place intended for visitors to savor and take their time. Among the special charms of Freiberg or Freetown are the bubbling brooks that constantly sing their way through the old town. This fortified town gate was built in the 13th century. When you walk through it, the past seems to follow you like a shadow. Not all of the Schwarzwald region is forest. The high plateaus are fertile and small farming communities abound. It's hard to tell which is more impressive, the natural site itself or the magnificent fortress that was built here. The Hohenzollern family dynasty, which ultimately ruled Prussia and later the German Empire, had its beginnings here. A good deal of the castle was remodeled in the 19th century, but much of the 15th century St. Michael's Chapel still survives from the original. They say that rather than having a university, Tübingen is a university. So important have students been to the life of this attractive town on the Neckar River for over 500 years. The town is also justly famous for its classic half-timbered house design. Naturally, the wood for them comes from the Black Forest. The old palace fort, which once protected the town, now houses several university institutes, as well as a cellar with the largest colony of bats in Germany. And yes, the famed gondolas of Tübingen still ply the river in this Black Forest version of Venice, Italy. Ulm, on the Danube, at the forest's eastern limit, boasts a church tower that measures 530 feet, reputed to be the tallest in the world. Although these days, Ulm has a more contemporary look as a modern scientific research center, which is only fitting because Albert Einstein was born here in Ulm in 1879. Most German autobahns are speedy and efficient. There are, however, a few that require just a bit more care. Fortunately, there are lots of other ways to get around. Situated on a plateau in the midst of the forest, Esslingen is also in the middle of a rich wine region. The local specialty is sparkling white wine, best served chilled after a nice evening walk through the town. The traditional houses of Esslingen have been rigorously kept in their original state. Not an easy task, built as they are on a bridge right above the river itself. Of course, the motorcycle races here can be exciting, but there are some other unexpected thrills as well. After Gottfried Daimler and Karl Benz began making an automobile named after a friend's daughter, Mercedes, they chose Stuttgart as the site of one of their largest plants. The famed company logo towers above the city and makes quite an impression when illuminated at night. The industrial city, one of the largest in the Federal Republic, is the capital of Baden-Württemberg. The Stute in Stuttgart is the German word for broodmare, for originally this place was the site of a royal horse breeding farm. What is left of the wonderful old town is most visible around the Schillerplatz, which is flanked by the Stiftskirche or Collegiate Church, and the Altes Schloss, the old palace. The Neues Schloss, a huge Baroque palace complex built in the grand style, occupies the open spaces of the city's vast central parks. Situated in nearby Ludwigsburg is an even more impressive palace. The splendor of its formal gardens has earned it the name, the Versailles of Swabia. This elegant little pocket palace was once the hunting lodge for the entire estate. The renowned city of Heidelberg on the Neckar River has attracted university students since the 14th century. But it is the Heidelberg Castle and its remarkable view of the entire valley that draws the tourists these days. University buildings surround this church, built for the Jesuits in the 18th century. A very highly respected university, Heidelberg is still remembered a bit too much for its portrayal in the operetta The Student Prince, for its rowdy drinking bouts and dueling scars. The Neckar River eventually joins the Rhine, well below where we had departed it to visit the Black Forest. And it is the quiet, flowing Rhine River we will rediscover and follow once again on its lyrical passage northward to the sea. On On peaceful days, the Upper Rhine is as much a watery playland as it is a commercial passageway. What commerce there is on this placid section of the river is usually relatively modest. Water sports have a very different look at this popular Rhine playland, only a few kilometers from the river itself. North of Karlsruhe, the Rhine becomes a much busier waterway. Tugboats and barges, sometimes convoys of them, container ships and tourist boats, freighters, fishing boats and ferries ply the narrow river continuously, making the Rhine one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world. This is one of the youngest towns in Germany, built in the 18th century when Prince Karl Wilhelm decided to retire here, hence the name Karlsruhe, or Karl's Rest. This palace was Karl's not-so-modest retreat from the cares of life. In nearby Malbrunn is one of the best preserved medieval monasteries in Europe. But restoration unfortunately means that we're also bound to see lots of scaffolding. The 12th century abbey and its surrounding buildings have been a highly recommended site on UNESCO's World Heritage List since 1993. If there is room for just one more 18th century palace in our itinerary, it should be this one. Not only for its neoclassical design, but for its unusual name, Schwetzingen. Mannheim and its sister city Ludwigshafen are primarily bustling, hard-working industrial cities and ports. Today in Mannheim is an exception, because the populace has come to the fairgrounds for a well-earned day of food and fun. The Friedrichsplatz Garden and its ancient Wasserturm, or water tower, are located in one of Mannheim's finest and usually busiest of neighborhoods. But almost no one is here today. Naturally not. Everyone's back at the fair. This bridge takes us to one of the oldest towns in Germany, Worms, a surprising name to English speakers. And it becomes even more humorous if you recall from history class the strangely named Diet of Worms, which forced Martin Luther to stand trial for his so-called heresies. Here in Worms, he refused to recant his beliefs and was banished to the outer reaches of the empire. Worms Cathedral, completed in the 12th century, remains one of the finest Romanesque creations in all of Germany. Ironically, just on the other side of the central marketplace, a smaller and much newer church commemorates the changes brought about by the religious Reformation begun by Martin Luther. Vineyards abound along the shores of the Rhine, but these just north of Worms are distinctive. They produce Liebfraumilch, a very popular sweet white wine intended mostly for export. One of the main stops on the Deutsche Weinstraße, the German wine route, is Bad Dürkheim, also known for its annual Wurst Market. Don't let the name of the event fool you. It really celebrates the wine harvest. The Wurst is secondary, and the sheer size of this wine barrel proves it. castle ruins dot the forested landscape of the Pfalzer Wald, almost all the way back to the shores of the Rhine River. Mainz is situated where the Main River joins the Rhine, and that fact alone would make it a prominent city. It is Germany's most important wine market, and its magnificent cathedral has also been beautifully restored. But all of these things pale before the fact that a man who changed the world was born here, Johannes Gutenberg, who invented modern printing. 2 rare Gutenberg Bibles are on display at the Gutenberg Museum. Surprisingly, a bit further east, along the quiet river Main, is one of Germany's and the world's greatest cities, prosperous, cosmopolitan Frankfurt, headquarters of many international corporations, site of the world's largest book fair, and the ancestral home of Germany's greatest writer, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. The city centre is really the restored Old Town, known as the Römerberg, a charming square around the Alte Rathaus, or Old Town Hall. Graced by 15th century timbered houses and the churches of St. Nicholas and St. Paul. The old Römerberg is a startling contrast to the new Frankfurt, only a few blocks away. As a great modern banking and financial centre, Frankfurt has the contemporary skyscraper look to go along with it. Which is why the city on the Main is nicknamed Mainhotten. The old opera house was completely burned down during World War II. It was rebuilt in its original neoclassical style, but these days it is used primarily as a conference center. Finance has been the lifeblood of Frankfurt ever since the city was granted the right to print money in the 16th century. The first stock exchange was established on this spot in 1558. So international is the attraction and flavor of this great city that one Frankfurt resident in every 4 is foreign-born. Returning to the Rhine gives us a chance to linger a while in Wiesbaden, a thriving and still very chic spa resort. Wiesbaden has been a bathing spa as far back as Roman times, but it was during the town's heyday in the 19th century that it became a rendezvous for royalty and the wealthy from around the world. The graceful homes still reflect the style of the town's golden days. The famed castles along the Rhine are rarely actually in the river, but this small fortress not only repelled potential enemies, it was also used as a toll booth. In the old days, ship captains had to pay up if they intended to go any further on the Rhine. Our journey on the river, however, is far from over. Though the locals call this monument the Goddess of Wine, it is actually Germania commemorating the re-establishment of the empire in 1871, and certainly we can all drink a toast to that. In one sense, the Rhine Valley describes the entire river's setting. But in fact, it is really only this short stretch of the river known as the Rheintal, famous for its Rhine wine, the breathtaking succession of romantic castles, and its world-famous legends and mystical tales. The most romantic and legendary stretch of the river starts at the town of Bingen, easily recognized by the towering Burg Klopp, an ancient castle stronghold. One after another, the castles of the Rheintal slide by, each always a reminder of the mysterious history of this place, the tales of chivalry and sorcerers, the magical story of the Nibelungen, upon which Richard Wagner based his Ring cycle, forerunner to the contemporary Lord of the Rings. These are just some of the thoughts and feelings this particular stretch of river can evoke.
So predigt, die Kirche findet ledig. Geht zu den Flüssen und predigt den Fischen. Sie schlagen mit den Schwänzen im Sonnenschein glänzen, im Sonnenschein, Sonnenschein glänzen. Sie glänzen, sie glänzen, glänzen. Die Karpfen mit Rogen, sein Tall hier erzogen, habt Mäuler aufrissen, sich zuhört befließen. kein Predigt nie mahlen, den Fischen so gefallen. Spitzgosche der Hechte, die immer zu fechten, sieht einen sehr schwommen zu hören, den Frommen, auch jene Phantasten, die immer zu fasten, die Stockfisch, ich meine, zur Predigt erscheinen. Kein Predigt nie malen, den Stockfisch so gefallen.
The legend of the Lorelei, the Rock of Lore, is of a beautiful enchantress who lures sailors to their deaths here with her siren songs. A more practical understanding is that the currents at this narrow bend can be very treacherous, and many boulders tumble down from the high cliff and lie dangerously just beneath the water surface. Tour boats often stop here to allow for lunch and a riverside walk. The town's most famous tourist site is the remains of a Roman military camp. No town on the winding river is more strategically placed than this one. Castle that cannot quite be seen from the river is Burg Els, a fairy tale fortress situated in the untamed Els Valley. It is not at all rare for the castle to be suddenly enveloped in mist. The vineyards are terraced even more steeply further downriver. And as we approach Koblenz, where the Mosel joins the Rhine, the wine takes its name from the river. It's a Mosel. The entrance of this major tributary, which joins the Rhine from France, is marked by Deutsches Eck, the German corner. Here stands an enormous equestrian statue of Emperor Wilhelm I. The river promenade on the Mosel is the perfect place to sample the local bratwurst, and although this is wine country, why not a bottle of dark and tasty Schwarzbier? The activity is far more sedate at the Electoral Palace, the Kurfürstliches Schloss. The fun here is mostly in just trying to pronounce the name. This fortress on the heights above the confluence of the Rhine and the Mosel commanded and protected the city for almost 1,000 years. A very short ride from Koblenz is the small volcanic crater lake of Maria Lach, which is significant for the superb Benedictine abbey built along its shore. Its construction is considered a masterpiece of German Romanesque architecture. Several times each day, Gregorian chants echo through the church galleries. Only the towers of the Remagen Bridge remain. It was over that bridge in March 1945 that American troops crossed the Rhine deeper into Germany. Only days later, under the weight of armored vehicles, the bridge collapsed. This bridge in Bonn is named after President John F. Kennedy, widely admired in Germany for his strong support of the German Federal Republic during the Cold War. Bonn became its provisional capital in 1949. The city is also well known as the birthplace of Ludwig van Beethoven, who grew up in this prosperous residential neighborhood. His former home is now a museum, displaying precious musical manuscripts and much early memorabilia. This geometrically perfect palace and botanical garden is in the Bonn suburb of Poppelsdorf. They belong to the university, but visitors are more than welcome. This late 17th century palace now houses Bonn University, which may make it one of the most beautiful educational settings anywhere in the world. Since it is getting a bit crowded up here, and since the storm clouds further north over the river look rather threatening, this might be a good time to turn back up the river and seek clearer skies. A good time to avoid the dangerous Lorelei siren's song and the wicked spirits conjured up by the brothers Grimm in the Schwarzwald. To allow the setting sun to begin to settle slowly behind us, above the ever-meandering Rhine River, over the river of memory and the river of time, which ebb and flow, but never end.